good morning. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning and we're back once again with a fresh dose of breakfast show, a show which we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines. We get you national updates, international updates, sports news, we'll get you business news, also we'll get you web news review, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour to make sure that your tea or coffee right in the morning tastes even better.
A very good morning to you, Preeti, and to all our viewers as well. It's a wonderful day, and in news this morning, as the United States completes the withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan, we take a look at what it means for the beleaguered country, which is lost in turmoil with no head of state. All the details on that. Back home, the situation of floods in Assam is grim. Meanwhile, in sports, for India, it was a Super Monday at the Paralympic Games in Tokyo yesterday. All that and more in the next 1 hour. But first, here are the headlines.
US completes withdrawal of its military presence in Afghanistan after 20 years. As the last of the American evacuation planes take flight out of the Kabul airport, the US shifts its Afghani diplomatic mission to Qatar.
India chairs important UN Security Council meet, passes resolution on Afghanistan, calls for denying use of Afghan territory by terrorists, pushes for humanitarian rights of Afghans, including Afghan travel abroad.
External Affairs Minister of State V. Muralidharan arrives in Bahrain on an official visit, meets Bahrain Foreign Minister, will interact with several dignitaries to discuss bilateral relationship.
Nine judge designates to take oath as justices of the Supreme Court of India today. First time that 9 judges will be taking the oath of office at one go. Oath ceremony will be telecast live on DD News and DD India.
Paralympians make it a Super Monday for India in Tokyo. Bagged 2 world record-breaking golds, 2 silvers and 1 bronze medal to make it India's best ever performance at the Paralympic Games, with 7 medals in the kitty till now. The previous best were 4 at Rio.
A national vaccination mission crosses 64 crore landmark. Himachal Pradesh becomes first state to complete 100% first dose vaccination of all adults. Schools to reopen partially in Delhi and Meghalaya from tomorrow. And now let's take a look at the news in detail.
Yes, the final US evacuation flight has left Kabul airport, marking the end of the 20 years of US presence in Afghanistan. The flight departed shortly after midnight in Kabul. On 31st of August, the date President Joe Biden set for the withdrawal of US troops. A flight tracker showed US Air Force planes leaving Kabul airport. The last troops left after a huge but chaotic airlift that cost the lives of 13 US troops and left behind thousands of Afghans and hundreds of Americans still seeking an escape from Taliban rule. The withdrawal was announced by General Frank McKenzie, commander of the US Central Command, who told a Pentagon briefing that the chief US diplomat in Afghanistan, Ross Wilson, was on the last C-17 flight out.
I'm here to announce the completion of our withdrawal from Afghanistan and the end of the military mission to evacuate American citizens, third country nationals, and vulnerable Afghans. The last C-17 lifted off from Hamid Karzai International Airport on August 30th, this afternoon, at 3:29 p.m. East Coast time, and the last manned aircraft is now clearing the airspace above Afghanistan. Tonight's withdrawal signifies both the end of the military component of the evacuation, but also the end of the nearly 20-year mission that began in Afghanistan shortly after September 11, 2001.
And the commander of the U.S. Central Command said the final flights did not include dozens of Americans who could not get to the airport.
There's a lot of heartbreak associated with this departure. We did not get everybody out that we wanted to get out. But I think if we'd stayed another 10 days, Louis, we wouldn't have gotten everybody out that we wanted to get out. And there still would have been people who would have been disappointed with that.
The last American soldier to leave Afghanistan was Major General Chris Donahue, Commanding General of the 82nd Airborne, America's division, who boarded C-17 on August 30th, ending the U.S. mission in Kabul.
And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has called the withdrawal from Afghanistan a massive military, diplomatic and humanitarian undertaking, and one of the most challenging that the United States has ever carried out. Talking to the media, the U.S. Secretary of State vowed after the U.S. military completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan that the Biden administration will keep up relentless efforts to help Americans, Afghans and others leave the country if they chose to do so.
Now, U.S. military flights have ended, and our troops have departed Afghanistan. A new chapter of America's engagement with Afghanistan has begun. We will continue our relentless efforts to help Americans, foreign nationals, and Afghans leave Afghanistan if they choose. We've thus far received confirmation that about 6,000 have been evacuated or otherwise departed. This number will likely continue to grow as our outreach and arrivals continue.
Blinken said that the U.S. will engage with Taliban government if it is in our vital national interest. Blinken said that Washington will not work with the Taliban on the basis of trust or faith, but on what it does with respect to its commitments for free travel for Afghans, protecting the rights of different groups, including women, and preventing terror groups from gaining a stronghold.
We will hold the Taliban to its pledge to let people freely depart Afghanistan. The Taliban is committed to let anyone with proper documents leave the country in a safe and orderly manner. We will stay focused on counterterrorism. The Taliban has made a commitment to prevent terrorist groups from using Afghanistan as a base for external operations that could threaten the United States or our allies, including Al-Qaeda and the Taliban's sworn enemy, ISIS-K.
The U.S. Secretary of State also said that the United States has suspended its diplomatic presence in Kabul and transferred its operations to Doha, Qatar.
We'll use this post in Doha to manage our diplomacy with Afghanistan, including consular affairs, administering humanitarian assistance, and working with allies, partners, and regional and international stakeholders to coordinate our engagement and messaging to the Taliban.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has meanwhile said that some 6,000 Americans have been evacuated from Afghanistan so far. In a media briefing, she said that the Biden administration is still trying to determine how many Americans are left in the country who want to leave ahead of Tuesday's self-imposed deadline to withdraw the U.S. troops.
The initial assessment, if we go back to August 14th, was that there were fewer than 6,000 Americans in Afghanistan who wanted to get out. So as we conveyed at the time, we knew that there could be an option, one, that people who had registered had already departed, or that people had registered had not deregistered, or that there would be additional people who came forward. And we believe there are still a small number.
And the United Nations Security Council has meanwhile, under the current presidency of India, adopted a resolution on the situation in Afghanistan, demanding that the war-torn country not be used to threaten or attack any nation or shelter terrorists. In an emergency meeting, the UN Security Council called on the Taliban to honor its commitments to allow Afghans and foreign nationals to leave the country.
As Afghanistan enters the next chapter, it is imperative that the international community remain unified and resolute, including in holding the Taliban accountable for its commitments. One such commitment which the Taliban has made publicly and privately is that those who wish to leave Afghanistan will be able to do so. Today's resolution signals just how seriously the Security Council takes that commitment, along with the commitments to allow humanitarian aid to flow and prevent terrorism.
The resolution was put forward by the US, the UK and the France. It was adopted after 13 council members voted in favor, while permanent members, Russia and China, abstained from the voting. The resolution also calls for unhindered humanitarian access and that the human rights of women and minorities are protected.
We're not in a place yet where we are prepared to recognize the Taliban. They haven't even formed a government yet. So we need to see what kind of government they form. We insist that that government be inclusive and that it allows for the participation of women and that it takes into consideration as it forms itself the rights of all Afghans, including minorities. So we will see what kinds of actions they take before any decisions are made about recognition.
Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla was chairing the UN Security Council meet under India's presidency, in which the resolution on Afghanistan was adopted. Talking to media, he said that the resolution is a very positive development and especially supports women and minorities.
This resolution also highlights the importance of upholding human rights, in particular in the case of women, children and minorities. India has always provided a very strong support to minority communities in Afghanistan, in particular the Sikh and Hindu minority communities. And it is an important part of our effort to try and bring those Afghan nationals, including minorities, who want to leave Afghanistan and evacuate them. And I think the resolution in that sense has indicated a need for developing a safe zone for the passage of travelers in and out of Kabul airport, which is indeed a very positive development.
The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, appealed on Monday for funding towards a $1.3 billion humanitarian response plan set for use against Afghanistan. Deputy UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Kelly Clements, issued the request during a visit to the Jordanian capital, Amman. She said that a total of 3.4 million people were internally displaced in Afghanistan, 120,000 of which in July 2021 alone, placing the humanitarian situation inside the country as a priority. UNHCR has also issued a response plan for refugee hosting countries for both response and contingency planning of almost $300 million.
Meanwhile, the Mexican government has said that 86 media workers and their family members who fled the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan arrived in Mexico on Sunday. Most of the refugees worked for the Wall Street Journal in Afghanistan. They were the third group to arrive at Mexico City's international airport since widespread evacuations began in Afghanistan. Last week, Mexico received another group of 124 refugees, including New York Times journalists. In the past 2 weeks, the US and their allies have taken about 114,400 people out of Afghanistan, including foreign nationals and vulnerable Afghans who fear persecution under Taliban rule.
More than 3,000 Afghan evacuees airlifted out of Kabul have found temporary housing at a US Army base in southwestern Germany. Rhine Ordnance Barracks is helping to house the evacuees, many of them small children who have arrived in Germany on US Air Force flights since the airlift out of Afghanistan began.
Afghan refugees who have been brought to safety to Italy on Monday said they are still very worried about family members whom they have left behind. At a camp holding 1,139 Afghan people run by the Italian Red Cross camp in Avezzano, everyone has left someone behind. All here have to undergo 7 days of quarantine as a safeguard against COVID and will then be transferred to other refugee centers scattered across Italy. The last Italian plane carrying Afghan civilians left Kabul on the 27th of August. More than 4,800 Afghans, including over 1,400 children, have been evacuated out of the country.
All right, joining us for more on that is our correspondent Ravi Dhiman. Ravi, the August 31st deadline has been met. The last plane, the US plane, has airlifted from the Afghan soil, but again the question rises, what next for the country in despair with no head of state there, and also what do we expect ahead?
Well, Preeti, as you just said, the last plane, American plane, left, and what a sight for a major superpower of the world. They had to leave Afghanistan in this way. They almost tried to extend the deadline, but a stern warning by the Taliban led them to scramble somehow, scramble and finish the evacuation by 31st. While they have left Afghanistan, I would say Afghanistan's challenges have not yet ended. In fact, they have increased manifold. Taliban is just one of them. One of the challenges would be the administration by the Taliban. But the major challenge in coming days would be peace, tranquility, and less violence by the Taliban commanders, by the Taliban soldiers against people who cooperated or who worked under the NATO forces. Not that they had any choice to work with the NATO forces, US and NATO allied attacked Afghanistan after 9/11 and subsequently developed their bases there and carried out a campaign against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, which America believed was behind the 9/11 attacks, and Taliban supported them. After Osama bin Laden was neutralized in Pakistan, there were calls from within US to stop the campaign in Afghanistan, as the US had achieved what it wanted to after 9/11. And Joe Biden had to take a call, not that he took a wrong call, but all over the world, including in the US, there has been concerns about the way US forces left Afghanistan and the way the entire evacuation operation had to be carried out after the US forces left and the Afghan government forces just crumbled against the blitzkrieg and onslaught by the Taliban forces, and they captured the entire nation within 1 week. So there are many challenges ahead for Afghanistan, including the building up a nation, ensuring that it does not become a breeding ground for terror again. That's a big challenge because Pakistan holds a considerable influence over Afghanistan, as there are only 3 or 4 nations who have been saying that they will recognize the Taliban government, no matter its record on the human rights or its coming good on its promises that the Taliban commanders have made so far. So the main challenge would be peace, tranquility, and other challenges would be to uplift the economy, which is in tatters, the currency is in a downward spiral, and the economy is in dire straits.
Right, Ravi. Even as India has, under the chairmanship of India, the UN Security Council has adopted a resolution to allow free and unfettered travel for Afghans across the world. Well, we are seeing that there is a massive evacuation. Initially, there were some fears of a looming refugee crisis, but it all seems to be very well organized. As of now, what is the real story there?
Well, there is still a refugee crisis that may develop in Pakistan, that may develop in Iran, because thousands and thousands of Afghan citizens, along with their families, their immediate belongings, are just rushing to the borders in the hope that they will be able to cross the borders. The irony of the fact is that all the neighbors have closed their borders to Afghan citizens. They really are the most affected people, the hapless Afghan citizens who have nothing to do with the violence, nothing to do with Taliban or their ideology, and they are caught in the crossfire. Iran has closed the borders. Pakistan has obviously fenced the entire border. It has closed the border because it says it cannot take in more refugees. But as a responsible neighbor, which has a government in place and an economy which is better than Afghanistan's, the onus is on the neighbors to at least help the Afghan citizens who are fleeing the Taliban rule in Afghanistan, but we don't see that. Neither Iran nor Pakistan seems to be in the current mood to accept more and more refugees from Afghanistan. But the truth is that there will be thousands and thousands of Afghan citizens who want to leave Afghanistan, fearing retribution by Taliban fighters because of their association with erstwhile NATO forces or US forces. We have seen that the US tried to evacuate many people who had worked with them, who had valid documents. But even after they claim they have, evacuated around 1.23 lakh people, there are many who have been left behind, and they have been left behind to the mercy of these Afghan Taliban soldiers, and they fear a violent reprisal by the Taliban fighters, and that's the real tragedy of this entire American evacuation ops, that they have left many Afghans to the mercy of Taliban fighters. We have seen over the past week, the Taliban fighters don't really, it's not a coherent group. Everyone is on its own, and there have been visuals coming out of Afghanistan about violence unleashed by these Taliban fighters on common man, on the common citizens, in the killing of artists like musicians and actors, and violence unleashed against women and children, their new education policy, and their diktat on withdrawing only $200 per week from the banks. All this has led to a situation of, a very fluid situation in Afghanistan. And the common man in Afghanistan is very much worried about his own life and about the future he and his family hold in Afghanistan.
All right, Ravi, you're talking of the chaos and the fluid situation in Afghanistan. There will be challenging times ahead also, but how do you evaluate, or how do you see the response of the international world at this point in time? Can something concrete be done by the other countries? Because US has said that they will engage with the Taliban government if it is in our vital interest. Also, at the start of when the US announced the deadline, and when Taliban took hold of Kabul, almost every country in the world came out with reprehensions and came out with stern words against Taliban. But now, when the ground situation is different, when Taliban is in the hold of the country as a whole, what is your evaluation of the international response? Can something concrete be done by these countries with respect to controlling the situation, or for that matter, making the situation better in Afghanistan?
Will you see the way Taliban has swept over Afghanistan after the US forces left, leaves them with no doubt that they are the military rulers of Afghanistan. And once bitten, twice shy, the NATO forces or the world has ruled out any military intervention if Taliban does not keep its promises to respect the human rights and care about women and children. But the leverage that the world has, the leverage that the Committee of the Nation have over Afghanistan is financial aid. Now, all the assets of Afghanistan in international banks have been frozen. The aid that was flowing in to Afghanistan from Bretton Woods institutions like World Bank and IMF has dried up. It has been stopped. And we all know that the economy of Afghanistan is in tatters. It is in dire need of funds to actually kickstart some of the programs, welfare programs for its poor. Around 50% of the population in Afghanistan doesn't have proper food. There's a danger that this statistics will rise further. And as we see the visuals coming in from Afghanistan, people are just scrambling for bread, they are scrambling for food, because there is no money with the people in Afghanistan. And apart from that, ever since the Afghan currency has started its downward spiral, there has been a rise in inflation to unimaginable levels in Kabul and in other cities of Afghanistan. Now, we all know inflation, if it rises and your sources of income dry up, it has a telling impact on the poor and the common man in the middle class of Afghanistan. Afghanistan commanders, when they came, they stopped trade with India. Now they're saying they want to have trade with India. The dry fruit markets in India is a huge market. India is a huge market, so the dry fruit market, being a part of that market, was a very important source of foreign income to Afghanistan. That is dried up. So the commanders will have to take a call about what to do with the economy, and that's where the world has a leverage over Afghanistan. The United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres has also said that their expectation of being recognized as the rulers of Afghanistan is the only leverage that the United Nations has. So the Western nations have this leverage of foreign aid, which Taliban and its government administrators would need in coming days and months.
All right, Ravi, so we'll have to see how the days ahead also pan out. Thank you so much for joining us with those inputs on the situation in Afghanistan.
And now we bring you news from the Paralympic Games underway in Tokyo.
In shooting, Rubina Francis is through to P2 women's 10 meters air pistol SH1 qualification round, and she finishes 7th with a total score of 560 in the qualification, and Rubina will be in action for the medal event at 8:30 a.m. onwards.
In archery, Rakesh Kumar has defeated Marian Marichak 140 to 137 in the individual compound open elimination round to advance to the quarterfinals. And his next match is in a short while from now at 8:34 Indian Standard Time, 8:34 a.m. That's just a short while from now today.
India's Bhavina Patel and Sonal Patel lose 2-11, 4-11 and 2-11 against China's Yingzhou and Bianzhang in women's team classes 4 to 5 quarterfinals.
In athletics, Simran finished 5th in the 100-meter T13 round 1 heat 2 with the season's best timing of 12 minutes 69 seconds in 12.69 seconds in her debut Paralympics. However, she failed to enter the finals.
All right, Anil Thomas is joining us to get us more on that. Anil, we tell our viewers about the action in which Rubina Francis and Rakesh Kumar will be against their opponents in a short while from now. But yesterday was a super day when we talk of India's performance at the Paralympics event in Tokyo. You let us know more. How do we expect the day to be today?
Well, good morning, Rukma. Good morning, Preeti. Well, it's been a maniac Monday, if one puts it that way. 7 medals. If you look at the span of time that the medals came about, roughly less than 12 hours. So it was a maniac Monday, I would put it that way, purely in terms of sports. 7 medals. Looked at, eclipsing the previous record in 2016 when 4 medals were won. This time around, in a single day, we managed to collect 7 medals. And I think the going has been good, especially for India. The way Avni performed, the way Sumit performed. Not many expected, and there was pressure on them. It was not as if it was an easy journey for them. Because, when I spoke to Shuma Shirur, her coach, who had helped Avni for long, Shuma said she wanted to start off on a good note, and she didn't start off on a good note. She managed to sneak into the final. She qualified, in that final position, but then she made it count at the bigger stage. Playing in the finals with starting from scratch. I think she made it count. And the same story goes with also Sumit. Sumit also had a tough time, but then the way he left, he kept his composure there. Clearly speaks volumes about the way Indian para-athletes have performed there in Tokyo. Also, when it comes to Devendra Jajaria, and a third, a treble at the Paralympics. He's got 2 gold medals before. This time around, the color of the medal has not been gold, but then it's been a stupendous show. It shows the longevity that, a para-athlete has, especially in this particular area. When you talk about today, we've had Francis there in great form, especially the manner in which she's managed to sneak in. It's again a sneaking into the final, but since you start from zero there, you still stand a very good chance. Rubina still stands a very good chance of making it count. Also, Rakesh there in archery, reaching the quarterfinals, really something to look forward to. But remember, archery is a very tricky game. It's the blow of the wind that plays a crucial factor there. But then he's held his fort well, and we can expect maybe a medal or two on this particular Tuesday morning.
All right, we can expect a medal or two on this Tuesday morning. Thank you so much, Anil, for joining us with those inputs. So that was our correspondent, all positive when we talk of India's performance today in Tokyo. Let's very quickly get you an update, or for that matter, a roundup of India's performance yesterday.
Right. Well, Indian Paralympic Avni Lekhara's gold medal just turned out to be the start to a great day yesterday, at the end of which India had 5 medals in its kitty, taking the total tally to 7 in Tokyo so far, the best ever haul at the Paralympic Games. India's previous best was 4 at Rio. The icing on the cake was the gold won by javelin thrower Sumit Until, who broke the world record in his category not once or twice but thrice to spear to the top of the podium. Take a look.
It's been a day of many wins for India on a single day itself, as the country broke its 2016 Rio Paralympics record of 4 Paralympic medals by winning 7 overall medals. Became a golden Monday for India when javelin thrower Sumit Until clinched the 6th medal for India. Sumit Until won gold in the men's javelin F64 at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics with a new world record throw of 68.55 meters. Sumit Until smashed the world record not once, not twice, but thrice during the final in Tokyo. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Sumit Until, who broke the world record in his category to win gold in javelin throw at the ongoing Tokyo Paralympics.
Thank you so much, sir. जी सर देश के नौजवानों को बहुत बड़ी प्रेरणा मिलेगी जी सर मेरी तरफ से बहुत बधाई थैंक यू सो मच सर आपको तो परिवार में भी संकट आए तो भी आप सपने पूरे कर रहे हो, बहुत बड़ी बात है। थैंक यू सो मच सर। आपको पूरी टीम को मेरी तरफ से बधाई है जी सर। आपके कोचेज को, आपके सभी और जो साथी खिलाड़ी हैं सबको मेरी तरफ से बधाई जी सर। थैंक यू सो मच सर।
The day started with a gold medal for Avni Lekhara. The 19-year-old became the first woman from India to win a Paralympics gold medal. Avni finished with a Paralympic record and in process equaled the world record with 249.6 points. The 19-year-old has been wheelchair-bound since a road accident in 2012. Under the government supervision, she receives the national coaching camps with sports science support along with sports kit and financial assistance towards installation of computerized digital target for rifle shooting at home, air rifle, ammunition and accessories. After gold, India witnessed silver glory as Yogesh Kuthunia bagged silver medal in men's discus throw F56 event. Yogesh registered his season's best attempt of 44.38 in the men's F56 final. He threw 44.38 in his 6th and final attempt to take up the top spot before Claudine Batista of Brazil fired 44.57 in his first attempt to dethrone the Indian athlete. The 24-year-old sent the disc to a best distance of 44.38 meters in his 6th and last attempt to clinch the silver. Under the government supervision, he receives the national coaching camps with sports science support along with sports kit. The 3rd medal and also his hat-trick medal at the Paralympics came from Devendra Jhajaria, who won a silver medal in men's javelin throw F46 event. Jhajaria grabbed silver with a personal best throw of 64.35. This was also his hat-trick medal at Paralympic Games. Padma Shri awardee scripted his name in the pages of history when he won the gold at 2004 Paralympics in Athens. Devendra broke his own record with a throw of 63.97 meters at the Rio Paralympics. Under the government supervision, he receives the national coaching camps with sports science support along with sports kit. and it was then a bronze medal captured by Sundar Singh Gurjar with a season's best throw of 62.58 in the same event. Sundar went first among the Indian trio in the final as he started with a season's best of 62.58. Sundar Singh Gurjar was born in a small village called Karole in Rajasthan. During the Rio Paralympics 2016, he was unable to present himself at the call room on time, following which he was disqualified. Sundar was awarded the Arjuna Award in the year 2019. Under the government supervision, he receives the national coaching camps with sports science support along with sports kit. He receives financial assistance in procurement of prostheses and equipment, along with the grant of coach fees. Sports Desk, DD India.
Union Minister of State for External Affairs V. Muralidharan will review various aspects of bilateral relationship with Bahrain today. Yesterday, after his arrival, the minister tweeted, and I quote him, "Touched by the warmth and hospitality extended to me by His Excellency Dr. Abdullah Atif bin Rashid Al Zayani, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bahrain, looking forward to reviewing various aspects of bilateral relationship." The minister will also hold interaction, including other interactions with several dignitaries and also the Indian community. Muralidharan's visit to the Middle Eastern country comes months after India and Bahrain on April 7 decided to bolster their bilateral defense and security cooperation, including through regular consultations in the areas of maritime security, combating piracy and also counter-terrorism.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met with diplomatic advisor of the UAE, President Anwar Gargash, yesterday to discuss regional concerns of common interest. In a tweet, Dr. Jaishankar said that the two leaders noted the steady progress of the relationship. Both sides also discussed regional concerns of common interest.
9 new judges, including 3 women, would be administered oath of office as judges of the Supreme Court by Chief Justice of India, N.V. Ramana, today. It is for the first time in the history of the top court when 9 judges would be taking oath of office at a one go, and also the swearing-in ceremony would be held in the auditorium of the Supreme Court's additional building complex. The swearing-in ceremony would be telecast live on DD News, DD India, and the live webcast would also be available on the homepage of official web portal of the Supreme Court.
India's cumulative vaccination coverage has crossed the 64 crore landmark, with the administration of over 53 lakh vaccine doses in the past 24 hours. The union government is committed to accelerating the pace and expanding the scope of COVID-19 vaccination. Also, the testing capacity across the country continues to be expanded. The past 24 hours saw a total of over 14,19,000 tests being conducted. India has so far conducted over 52 crore cumulative tests.
In Delhi, schools will reopen in 2 phases. From tomorrow, schools will reopen for classes 9 to 12, while those for standards 6 to 8, they are expected to restart from September 8th. As per the guidelines issued by Delhi Disaster Management Authority, maximum of 50% attendance will be allowed. It will not be compulsory for students of permitted grades to report to schools, and only those with written parental consent will be allowed. Online learning will continue for those who opt for online classes and they opt for out of school physically. Further, students, teachers and employees living in containment zones will not be permitted to report to their institutes. Apart from standard precautions on sanitization, masking and physical distancing, institutes have also been directed to maintain a quarantine room on the campus for the event that a student or teacher displays symptoms while at school.
And the Karnataka government has decided to impose 7 days compulsory quarantine for all coming to from Kerala to the state. After 7 days of quarantine, a negative test is a must too. Meanwhile, Karnataka schools have been asked by the state government to reopen from the 6th of September onwards for classes 6, 7 and 8 on alternate days. Students will be called in batches for offline classes. Online classes will also continue to take place and students will have to follow COVID-appropriate behavior at all times. The decision on classes 1 to 8 is yet to be taken by the state government. The state government is also opening schools in a phased manner. In the first phase, schools reopened for classes 9 to 12 only in districts where the COVID positivity rate was less than 2%. Regions or districts that showed a positivity figure higher than 2% were not allowed to reopen for offline classes. Karnataka is following a district-wise approach for the purpose of reopening educational institutions. For the same, concerned ministers and Zilla Parishad heads have been directed to maintain a check on schools and positivity rates and take any action necessary for the safety of all.
Meghalaya government would partially reopen the educational sector from September 1st, that is tomorrow. The government has said that regular classes would resume for students of 9 to 12 in both rural and urban areas. For classes 6 to 8, only school visits are permitted in the urban areas, with regular classes are to resume in rural areas. For students of classes 1 to 5, classes will continue to be limited to online modes in urban areas, while school visits will be allowed in rural areas. Additionally, all colleges in the states will also reopen from 1st of September. SOPs to be followed include mandatory face masks for all students and teachers, adequate availability of hand sanitizers and hand washing facilities, and also space for isolation should the need arise. Teachers and staff are also encouraged to be vaccinated, and those who are yet to do so are to produce a negative RT-PCR test result every 10 days. Measures have also to be put in place for wider sensitization of students about COVID-appropriate behavior.
And Himachal Pradesh has become the first state to administer the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine to 100% of its adult population. The state's health minister has said that the state government will administer the second dose to 100% of its population by November 30th. And he also added that those found to have been left out of the inoculation process will be given the dose soon. Adding that 13 lakh people have been vaccinated so far. The Hill state reported 123 new cases of coronavirus. One death was reported on Sunday. At present, there are 1,750 active cases. Union Minister Anurag Thakur, who is also the fourth-term member of Parliament from Hamirpur Lok Sabha seat, tweeted, "Himachal leads by example. Every citizen in every state must get vaccinated and continue to follow COVID-19 protocols. We can do this."
The flood situation in Assam has worsened as 21 districts of 34 were hit with severe rainfall affecting over 3.63 lakh people. Now, as per the reports of the Assam Disaster Management Authority, one child each was washed away in floodwaters in Morigaon and Barpeta districts. According to the officials, over 1.3 lakh people were affected in the worst affected Lakhimpur district. The other flood affected districts are Majoli, Darang, Biswanath, Dhemaji and Sivsagar. Crops worth 30,333 hectares have been destroyed and 950 villages have been affected till now, as per the ASDMA officials. To provide shelter, 44 relief camps were opened to the flood-affected men, women and children. All shelters were created following the COVID-appropriate protocols.
And joining us now is our correspondent Mridu Smita to give us an overview of the situation there. Mridu Smita, we believe that even as the state disaster management authorities are trying to maintain the situation, control the situation, the flood situation has worsened terribly. Give us a sense of which are the districts that are most affected. We believe that 21 among them, but well, more in detail.
Barpeta, Chirang, Morigaon, Jorhat, Sibsagar, these are the worst hit districts because the water there are the Brahmaputra water level has risen, because of which the water of the water of the Brahmaputra river has flown over to such districts, such places, because there have been damages to the roads, bridges, and even the embankments. So the water is getting in to the cities and the towns. Especially the population out there is affected. They are being evacuated by the SDRF and NDRF officials from there, and as per the reports in the last 24 hours, by deploying around 17 to 20 boats, more than 500 people have been evacuated, and they have been brought to the safer places where they are taking shelter. And if I talk about the wildlife that are affected, the Kaziranga National Park and the Popitara National Park, almost 70% of the both the national parks are being submerged, as Kaziranga is in the district of Jorhat. So as Jorhat is affected, one of the worst affected districts in the current flood wave. So more wildlife are taking shelter on the higher lands, and due to which the Chief Minister of Assam, Himanta Biswa Sharma, he have directed that because the higher lands are the highways, the roads that are there, the heavy vehicles like trucks or such vehicles to, they take a diverted route rather than taking that route. They are being stopped, such heavy vehicles are being stopped from plying that highway, as this might affect the animals out there who are trying to, take shelter and coming to the higher lands. And there was also a report of one hog being killed due to this flood yesterday. And as human lives, if I talk about, as you have already mentioned, that two child have been, they have died because of the flood, and one in Morigaon. Then again, when I was talking about the national parks, the Pobitara National Park Wildlife Sanctuary, it is under in the district of Morigaon, and Morigaon is a district where each year the flood situation becomes worse to worsen. And so this time also it is the same. The Popitara National Park, Popitara Wildlife Sanctuary is also under, submerged. More than, as I said, it's more than 70% of the water has already get into the wildlife.
All right, Smita, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs on Assam flood situation. Let's get to the update on the flood situation from Bihar now. There in Bihar, the flood situation has also worsened as the major rivers, including Ganga and Kosi, have again crossed the danger level at many places. The water level of the Ganga River is on the rise from Buxar to Kehalgaon, Bahrain, Hatide and Kehalgaon. The river is flowing above the danger mark at all the places. The increased discharge from Kosi barrage has caused flooding in many areas of Madhubani and Khagaria. Supal and Saharsa districts are also affected due to the flooding of the Kosi River. NDRF team rescued 28 people trapped in the floods of Masan River in Ramnagar and West Champaran last night. The Met Office has predicted light to medium rainfall in the catchment areas of Ganga, Gandak and Kosi in the next 24 hours.
And time now for some international news in our next segment, Across the Globe. We begin by taking a look at updates on COVID-19 from across the world, with over 21 crore 77 lakh people being infected by the virus so far. The number of recoveries stand at above 19 crore 46 lakhs. More than 45 lakh 22,000 people have lost their lives to the virus worldwide. The US continues to remain the worst hit of all countries, with over 3 crore 98 lakhs, and the number of deaths stand at above 6 lakh 55,000.
And now an update on the COVID-19 situation from Bangladesh. The country will be able to vaccinate the targeted 80% of its over 160 million population by next year. The country is expecting the receipt of the required number of vaccines from various sources to help it launch an accelerated inoculation campaign. The Director General of Health Services, Dr. Abdul Bashar Khurshid Alam, said that Bangladesh has already reached or finalized deals with various sources to procure vaccines to inoculate 130 million people. He said that Bangladesh was set to purchase nearly 140 million doses of the vaccine by June next year. He also said that currently around 5 lakh people are being vaccinated on a daily basis. Bangladesh now has the infrastructure to vaccinate 10 million people per month and is also collecting a significant amount of vaccines under the COVAX facility of the WHO. So far, Bangladesh has also collected 30 million doses of the COVID vaccine from various other sources. More than 18.28 million people have received the first dose of the vaccine and 7.84 million people have received both the doses of the vaccine till Sunday.
And an update now on Hurricane Ida, which has lost some of its steam after making landfall as a Category 4 in Louisiana. As per the Louisiana Department of Health, at least 2 people have lost their lives. Most part of the city of New Orleans remains without power. After Ida slammed exactly 16 years to the day, Hurricane Katrina made landfall, wreaking deadly havoc. Energy company Entergy says customers in the hardest hit areas could experience power outages for weeks. Visuals show littered roads with debris and flooded isolated communities south of New Orleans. Governor John Bell Edwards has said more fatalities are expected as Ida heads north as a tropical storm. President Joe Biden has declared a major disaster in the state, ordering federal assistance to bolster recovery efforts. In a statement, the White House stated that the Federal Emergency Management Administration has sent 3,600 of its personnel and 3.4 million meals to the storm-devastated area.
Up next, a quick health report to make sure that you remain in good health and spirits.
Well, it's National Eye Donation Fortnight and the day is being observed with great gusto. The fortnight is being observed with great gusto. Let's understand the importance and process of eye donation as Kiran Bharadwaj spoke with an expert.
National Eye Donation Fortnight is observed every year from 25th August to 8th September. It is a campaign which aims to create public awareness about the importance of eye donation and to motivate people to pledge their eyes for donation after death.
There are many causes of corneal blindness, which include the corneal infections, the corneal injuries, some malnutrition conditions such as vitamin A deficiency, corneal dystrophy and many other. All these can lead to opacification of the cornea and these corneas need to be changed. These corneas can be changed. Anyone can donate eyes. There is no age or gender restrictions on this.
Diseases affecting cornea are among the major causes of vision loss and blindness worldwide. And in most of such cases, loss of sight can be corrected through eye donation.
The people who have healthy cornea, they should be aware that this is an asset that they have. They should take care of their eyes. All the health and hygiene of the eye should be maintained, and also they should pledge their eyes. Once they pledge their eyes, along with that they should make their next of kin aware about their pledging of their eyes, and this may act their last will, so that after his or her death the eye donation should be carried out by the next of kin. They should contact the eye bank.
Make eye donation your family tradition. Leave back your vision. Enlighten someone's life by donating your eyes. Kiran Bharadwaj, DD News.
Alright, leave behind your vision and light someone's eyes. So that was the health report of the day. Up next, a quick weather report. As per the weather forecast, the low pressure area lies over western parts of Vidarbha and neighborhood, and the system is likely to move west-northwest across central and west India during the next 3 days. Also, an offshore trough at mean sea level runs from Karnataka coast to Kerala coast. The east-west shear zone roughly is running in the middle tropospheric levels, and it is likely to persist during the next 24 hours. Rainfall is likely to enhance over northeast India from tomorrow onwards, with isolated heavy fall and scattered rainfall activities likely over western Himalayan region and adjoining plains of northwest India. Also, widespread to fairly widespread rainfall is expected over West Madhya Pradesh, Vidarbha, Madhya Maharashtra, and also Konkan and Goa, and also over Gujarat and East Rajasthan, and isolated very heavy falls are likely over Konkan and Goa during today and tomorrow, and over Madhya Maharashtra today, and also over Gujarat on 1st and 2nd of September. Now a quick look at temperatures across major cities of the country.
And well, we've come to the end of this edition of Breakfast News. We hope you enjoyed our show today. And as usual, we'd like to remind you very quickly that as you step out of your homes this morning, mostly it'll be in a short while from now, don't forget to maintain COVID appropriate behavior. Wear a mask. It's a simple task, but it will protect you, and get yourself vaccinated as soon as possible.
Yes, indeed, be a responsible citizen. And also every day we get you some visuals which have that feel good factor, which we're sure remains with you throughout the day. And today we'll tell you about Martin Luther King Jr., popularly quoted that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do so. And before we end this edition of Breakfast Show, we'll take you to Athens, where hundreds of colorful drones performed a light show in the enchanting sky. Take a look at these visuals. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.
Namaskar.